Welcome back to MugenCast. This week it's episode 22. This we're going to be discussing some time management stuff, self-image, self-worth, a little bit thrown in there, and a bunch of other things that I think could be interesting and helpful to you young creatives out there. So enjoy the episode. MugenCast. It's been too long. Even it hasn't really been that long to be honest. But welcome back, guys. Thank you for tuning back in on this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed last week's. Did it come out last week though? I might have taken a week off. I can't even remember at this point. But I hope you enjoyed episode 21. I'll put it like that. I had a lot of fun making the episode. I like those quick episodes where it's like I just got to get in and get out because it's kind of the time crunch. And also, I feel like sometimes you guys don't want to listen to a super long podcast. I know I don't sometimes. So, but anyway, on this one, like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking a little bit about time management. I kind of closed the book, I guess I could say, on the whole. What was I even discussing last week? I guess kind of, well, not necessarily self-worth, but more comparing yourself to others, and that whole kind of game that I've been playing in my mind that I kind of need to get over. Role models, ambition, success, what it is, all that type of stuff. Kind of shut the book on that for now. And now I want to switch gears to something else that has kind of been challenging for me, and I think something that is worth talking about to maybe help some other people that are going through it, as well as obviously, let me kind of get this off my chest a little bit. And yeah, just I think it's a topic that could be helpful, and that's the main thing I want to do here on MugenCast, help you guys out when I can, and also share my experiences. It's always nice to know there's someone out there that you can relate to. So we're gonna be talking about time management, but not necessarily just time management, but all the things that are offshoots of time management, negative or positive. I'm gonna break it down kind of how it happens in my mind and some of the pros and cons of that, and then hopefully you guys can maybe take a few things from that, get a discussion going. I'm very interested to see how other people kind of think about this, because this has been my mindset for a while, a negative one that I need to kind of relearn and reprogram and all that different types of stuff. But I think you guys are going to find it interesting. Quick update on me before we get started though. Honestly, nothing too crazy to report. I think I've kind of just been holding the status quo a little bit. I finally got my hair cut, so that was cool. And so not if you guys have been wondering why there hasn't been any self portraits of me on my Instagram at mugen.ig, that is why, because I just look like a barbarian. What else? Oh, also, I've started I shouldn't say I started, but I've started up more on Twitter in terms of actually tweeting and being active and interacting with people and things like that. So feel free to follow me at Tales of Mugen on Twitter. I almost said Instagram. It feels so like natural to say Insta, but Tales of Mugen on Twitter. I mostly just talk about similar stuff I talk about on here: creativity, roadblocks I'm encountering, things I've overcome, things I want to change, whatever. And yeah, so it's a good place if you just kind of want to interact with me, talk with me, and really join the creative community that they have on Twitter, which I think is a really good one. I from what I've seen in the past I guess in the past week, we'll say, I've seen a lot of people, for one, encouraging others who are kind of going through some struggles, creative struggles specifically, and even life struggles. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like Instagram's not a bad community, but I don't really feel the same sense of unity and oneness that I feel on Twitter, kind of in their like creative conversations that I've seen. I think it's really cool, honestly. So I'm glad I decided to get in that and take advantage of that platform, because I've had it for however long and I haven't even been really active on it. So yeah, Twitter's been going well. And other than that, I think that's it. So let's jump into this week's episode. So as I've gotten older, I really feel that I'm faced with like more time restrictions than ever, which may or may not be true. It might just be like a perception thing, or maybe I'm going through like an early midlife crisis or something. But it's like I feel like I'm busy but lazy at the same time, which really doesn't make any sense. It's like the time of the day moves by so fast, and I feel so busy and like pressed to get things done. Like you have to get done X, Y, and Z, podcast, blog, whatever, do a photo shoot, etc. And then when I don't get that, like that high goal, that high tier of things done, I feel like, man, that I just kind of sucked today. When you're looking back throughout the day and you had the goals to do, say, X, Y, and Z, and you only did X, you just kind of feel like, man, I didn't really take advantage of that day like I should have. And in this day and age, especially where being busy is like, it's amazing. Everyone wants you to be pressed for time. They want you to be busy. You have to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off to seem like you're actually doing something. No one really gives credence or favor to those who are relaxing and taking life easy and just trying to really enjoy the ride that is life. Those people are seen as lazy. You're not grinding enough, and that whole kind of culture that exists, especially because social media just pushes that up. Just like everything, social media just dredges up a lot of different things, but that especially because people can show you into their lives, and you feel like everybody's doing all these crazy things around you and is working so hard and is doing so much, and it feels like you're just not doing anything. So that can be very frustrating for sure. But yeah, so in this day and age where you feel like if you're not busy, it can be a feeling that's very detrimental. It can be a feeling that's very detrimental to you. And it's really like a vicious cycle. It kind of rinses and repeats because you get stuck in that place of negative self-image and seeing yourself as not a hard worker or as just not good enough in certain respects. And it really sucks when you're like, if you are not good at your job or something, if you don't really care about your job, then it won't be that big of a deal. But when you're not good at something that you genuinely care about, like your creative field, like if you're not a good writer, if you're not a good photographer, whatever, that can be very frustrating because you're putting so much of yourself into it, and you're putting yourself out there a little bit for criticism, to be laughed at, whatever, and to just have it come back and not really go the way you want it to, or maybe even worse, feeling that you're not putting enough effort. It can just be very frustrating to have that blow back in your face, or feel as though that's what's going on, which I think more often than not it is more of a feeling rather than actuality. I think a lot of us work harder than we really give ourselves credit for. But I think the best way to kind of illustrate how much of a vicious cycle this can be, and kind of how it's been happening in my mind for months and months and months, maybe even years, I guess I could say as well. I'll break it down on a week to week basis. I think that's a good way to kind of see my mindset and kind of track it. And I think a lot of other people's mindsets as well. I think a lot of people may kind of get stuck in this circle, this cycle. So, okay. Monday, we all start out feeling like we'll get so much done, so many goals will be achieved. You might have had a bad weekend, you might have had a good weekend, and it kind of propels you forward for the beginning of the week. And you think, okay, last week is done, this week is here, and we need to do X, Y, and Z. So let's say on a particular day, I want to go to the gym, I want to get some creative stuff done. You want to talk with your significant other a little bit, interact with them, cook dinner, go to work, say if you work a 9 to 5, whatever. So let's say Monday starts out. You go to work 9 to 5. Work was great. You got the gym in before, or after, whichever. So that's already taken care of by around 6 or so. You're already home. Got home, made dinner. You already prepared all your ingredients in the morning so you can get home, make a quick dinner. Worked on a few creative stuff. If you're trying to maybe pick up a new hobby, if you're trying to learn photography, I know that can be a very painstaking process. Or if you're just working on a new novel, that's actually this is a huge kind of segue or side note, but Twitter has a lot of creative writers that I love hearing their processes, especially 'cause I always thought creative writing was so cool, but it's something I'm terrible at. So if you want some good inspiration, go on Twitter. But anyway, say whatever project you're working on Monday, you're getting that done. You're able to spend some quality time with your loved ones, whether, like I said, your significant other, or even just your friends, families, whatever. Read a book. I've been trying to do some reading recently. And the day comes to an end and you just feel very fulfilled. That's what you should take from this Monday example. You feel very fulfilled. Everything's going great, and you couldn't be happier. Then, then we're gonna get to Tuesday. But on a day like this, the main point is that time feels like it was on your side. In this example, everything was slotted into the right place, and there wasn't that constrained feeling of being pressed for time. And that's why I realized when days are going smoothly, it just feels so good. It feels so right. And you just want it to be this way all the time. Always want to feel like you're pressed. You're not pressed for time. You always want to feel like you don't have to motivate yourself or really, really motivate yourself. Not just like, oh, come on, let's do it. But you're kind of dragging yourself to go do something. You want it to come naturally. You don't want it to be difficult. It shouldn't be difficult. It's something you enjoy. That's how you want every day to be like this Monday that I just described. At least I do. But then Tuesday comes around, And hypothetically, you stayed up a little bit too late, so you woke up late, so you missed the gym, so you didn't, prepare your dinner for when you came home. You worked at 9 to 5, but you made a mistake at work, so you had to stay till 6:30 instead of 5. So you're already losing out on a decent portion of the day just because of that. And big shout out to people with 9 to 5s that you do, Monday through Friday, even sometime on weekends, because that's just so much of your time being put into something that isn't necessarily your main goal or your main aspiration. I have a lot of respect for people who can do that and provide for themselves and their loved ones as well. Big shout out to you guys. But anyway, Tuesday's going. You made a mistake at work, so you had to stay till 6:30. Um, you forgot to take the chicken out of the fridge, like I said, so you don't have it ready when you got home. And now it's 8:30 or 9. The day's winding down. You're just finishing dinner. You're feeling kind of lethargic. You might do a little bit of reading, just a few chapters today. You kind of get caught up in Instagram and YouTube, and you don't necessarily work on your creative stuff. And you don't really leave the house. You don't really go to do anything with your friends. You're more just kind of, solitude, I guess, or a little bit solo for the day. And a day like this, and then you maybe get to say 10, 11 o'clock, you have to get to sleep soon, whatever, because you obviously have work the next day. And then you just feel like you haven't got enough done. So now you try to cram everything in, and now you don't get everything done, even when you tried to cram everything in into that last hour and a half. And you end up going to bed unfulfilled and just not feeling that great about yourself. At least this is how I see the cycle playing out for myself, and other people I've talked to as well. This isn't just Dimitri. And yeah, that's how the day ends. So you carry that feeling, and I think this is very key of how you end off your day. Definitely does carry on to the next day. I'm a firm believer of that. If I have a bad night, I wake up just with one thoughts of that bad night and still angry about it or irritated, whatever. And it just weighs down my mood for the beginning of the day, and I have to kind of shirk it off before it transfers to the entire day, which you never want a negative feeling right in the morning to just transfer on and be continuous throughout your entire day. It's just not cool. Um, so on a day like Tuesday, you just didn't feel like you did enough. You didn't plan enough. And then you have that monkey on your back, like I said. And you go into Wednesday, and it's almost kind of like you go in almost scared to the next day because you're thinking, well, what if it's just going to be like Tuesday all over again? And because of that, you overcompensate. You try to do so much because you want to make up for what you didn't do Tuesday that you end up failing again on Wednesday. And now you're really in the dumps because that's 2 days in a row compared to just the one Monday that you actually did what you were supposed to do. And now doubts. Why isn't Monday, or why isn't Tuesday and Wednesday being as productive as Monday was? Why is Thursday about to be bad? Why is Friday about to be bad? Why is this just a bad week? And then you just kind of lose control of your thoughts a little bit, and you start just feeling very negative. I think it's easy to slip down that. Like I said, all it took was 2 days of things not going your way, and you kind of get in a negative headspace. And for creatives, of course, it's terrible. It's not fun because, one, you can't create what you want to do, and creating is the thing that will get you out of the mood you're in. It's like a terrible catch-22, basically, or paradox, whatever you want to call it. And so from this little example I gave you guys, it's a few things to glean from this. I'll do a little recap here. So one, time is very relative. It's finite in actuality. We all have specific lifespans that we're going to be living. We're not going to be here forever, but it's very much based on you in terms of the time you feel that you have. So you ever feel like those certain days where, like I said, Monday, you feel like you have so much time, you're everything's going great, and the days where you feel pressed for time, or even on a lower scale, a minute when you're holding your breath feels like forever, but a minute when you're hanging out with someone that you really enjoy, like a friend or whatever, it feels like it goes by so fast. You look over and 3 hours have gone by. Have you ever had that feeling, or if you're at work and time is just dragging and dragging and dragging, and it's very much due to your intentions and how you're approaching that specific activity. So work, for example, if it's a place you don't like working at, that feels very negative and the energy is not there, 10 minutes is going to feel like an hour there. And and the more you focus on it, the more you manifest that energy, and the more it feels just like time is just dragging and dragging and dragging. And like I said, on the opposite side, if you're doing something fun, it goes by super fast. So time is very relative on you, and you have to realize that while yes, it is finite, you can almost control the amount of time you have just with your mind and just with monitoring your emotions and your feelings toward things, and the way you go into a situation and the mindset you have in that situation. Very, very important. How you tune your mind will have an impact on how much you have available. Maybe not literally, but the feeling is what matters. And insight number two to glean from that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday example. Lofty goals are great. I love making huge, unrealistic goals to try and see if I can achieve them. When you do, it feels amazing. But realistic ones are the best. So just like I was saying with the gym example, would you rather go to the gym 6 times a week, or not the gym example, but how I was mentioning the gym in my example? Would you rather go to the gym 6 times a week for 2 hours a day, or have that plan and only be able to achieve that 1 week out of the month, or a few days each week, maybe one or two? Or would you rather go to the gym 4 days a week for 1 hour, not that crazy, and be able to do that for every week for the entire month, 5, 6 days a week? You have to be realistic with yourself of what you're capable of at certain times, and not get down on yourself, honestly, when you're not achieving, say, those lofty goals that you might want to have, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people, like I was saying in previous episodes. And those and trying to measure yourself up to these like high standards, if you're exactly if especially if you're coming from a low level, if we're continuing with the gym, if you're just starting out and you want to do X, Y, and Z, you want to jump right into it, and you want to get to your peak body or perfect body so quickly, you end up almost working against yourself, because then the gym feels negative to you when you can't achieve your goals. You feel like you're not good enough and you don't go, and it just gets worse because you're not going. And I think the same thing happens with creativity. When we hypothetically want to crank out, let's say if I wanted to get 5 photo shoots done a week, that would be a lot for me. And I don't get that done, and I just feel, man, if I'm not getting 5 photo shoots done, what's the point of even doing two or three? Well, there is a point to doing two or three. It's the fact that you got up and tried to do something and did your best that you could do in that moment. But our minds don't necessarily give us credit for that, unfortunately. We more want to look at the negative of what we didn't do than what we actually did, unfortunately. So that's insight numero dos. So just to end that, you have to play the long game. You have to play a long game with goals and consistency. Consistency is where it's at. Consistency is where it's at. That's a word I always like kind of mispronounce. Anyway, number three, there's a give and take every day. You sacrifice one thing to get another. I think my business professor called this the opportunity cost. The cost of taking this opportunity, since you're not taking something else, right? And you can't do it on the same time. You might choose, a night out with your friends over studying. You choose quality time with your family over your friends. And someone's gonna lose out every day. You're not gonna be able to satisfy all parties or all things that are in your life. But you have to realize that it's more about a complicated balance rather than nail. It's more about a complicated balance over time than nailing it every single day, every single time. It's well, life is balance, honestly, but at the same time, you have to realize that there's periods of time where you're not going to be able to show one thing as much as you're not going to be able to show one thing as much attention as you would like. But maybe you can do it another point in time, and it's not necessarily you have to look down on yourself for not being able to achieve that, or look down on the thing itself because you're saying this is irrelevant to me because I'm clearly not able to make time for it. It's more that you just have to evaluate what's been going on around you and why you haven't been able to give it time. Do you want to? Is it just a fact of you've just had other things on your plate? It's not necessarily playing the blame game or pointing the finger at yourself or something else. It's just realizing that sometimes you get caught in a rock and a hard place type situation, and you're just stuck, and you have to give up one thing to get the other thing. And that's also very much about stacking, or I guess I should say ranking your priorities, and being able to know this is what I need to take care of first. This is like a top S level priority, and then the things below that, stack in A, B, C, D, and those different kind of categories. And that's not something you should feel. At least I don't think that's something you should feel bad about. It's that type of like internal inventory is something that we all need to do. Um, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. I was about to kind of expand, but I'm like, they got the point. So, and then insight number four is to take out the unnecessary. So this, honestly, three and four kind of are one thing. But like I said, do that stock, do that inventory. And, I'm not really into necessarily minimalism. I wouldn't really say it's that, unless it's photography, in which case, yes. But the idea of taking stock and removing things that maybe aren't as valuable, or just ranking things in the place that they do belong, and living your life according to that, and trying to keep yourself balanced and whole in a way. I agree with that for sure. Not that, and I don't think that's true minimalism. It's kind of like minimalism with a little bit more discretion, I guess I could say. I think that's very important. I think it's a tactic I'm going to try and implement a little bit more in my own life, and I think maybe you guys should give it a try as well. I'll be interested to see how it works for you, those of you who are kind of suffering or struggling with a lot of the things that I'm talking about in this episode. And with that, it's also an admittance that I really enjoy unnecessary things. I like being able to spend 2 hours on YouTube just watching whatever random video my related videos bring up. But you just have to rein it in sometimes. And a little bit of unnecessary isn't bad, but just like anything else, too much of it can be a bad thing. And this all being said, I think the biggest takeaway from this is just that self-image and managing the self-image during these types of scenarios, it's it's the key. You don't want to get too high, you don't want to get too low with your feelings. You never want to feel as though you're maybe super on top of the world and you're this is how every day should be, because not every day is going to be that way. Oh, about to sneeze. Excuse me. Because not every day is going to be that way necessarily. It's realizing that you want to stay at somewhere in the middle. You want to just kind of float in that middle ground. I'm about to sneeze again. I'm gonna have to edit that out. But you want to float somewhere in that middle ground consistently and be able to maintain that. That's where the consistency comes in, right? Yeah, those successes, those failures can happen in such like kind of peaks and valleys and be so up and down that it kind of throws your heart out of balance in a way. And as a creative, you have to allow yourself to fail and succeed almost at the same time and maintain the same demeanor throughout that as well, which is really, really difficult. Creation is born of trial and error, and you have to embrace that trial and error process that it takes to get to that next level. At least that's what I believe. If you want to call yourself a creative, a true creative, you're not always going to have successes. And if you're just, say, running away from a creative outlet that you enjoy just because it's not necessarily going well, I feel like you're not necessarily embracing creativity as much as you should. And sometimes you do need to take those breaks. I agree. But with that, I feel like you do have to go through those tough times to make it through and actually break through to something that might be better than what you even had in store for yourself or what you even thought was possible. I've definitely had that a lot in my life. Um, and yeah, that's just my advice for you time pressed creatives out there, or just people who feel time pressed in general. And like I said with this podcast, probably when I was starting it, this isn't for just the young modern day creative. It's maybe more tailored to them, but for anyone who's starting a business, doing something independent, or just pursuing something on your own time that really means a lot to you, that's keep it as general as possible. I think these tips might be helpful for you, and I hope you took something from that. So that's the kind of creativity, not really creativity but the creativity segment for this podcast. Now we're going to move into entertainment. I'm going to stop for a second, maybe sneeze one more time, get some water, and then I'll be right back. And through the magic of editing, I have returned. So I'm just going to go into kind of like an entertainment segment. It's something I want to add to my podcast a little bit more, because I feel like there's so many cool things that I see throughout the week that I'm just like, maybe I can just roll it up to like a multimedia type of entertainment type segment. So that's what we're going to do for this episode. So first things first, I was just randomly scrolling through YouTube doing the unnecessary, like I say I like to do from time to time. And I was actually listening to another podcast, Painkiller, already, and they were talking about the Game of Thrones season 8 Battle of Winterfell, and they were also comparing it to some of the other greatest battles they've seen in like cinematography and all that. And Lord of the Rings came up, and it's funny because I've never actually watched a Lord of the Rings movie from beginning to end. I've always seen kind of bits and pieces. I don't know what's going on in the universe, to be honest. I don't even know where to begin in terms of like what's first. I guess it would probably be Lord of the Rings 1, but whatever. So I was like, oh, let me look up some of these battles. Let me see what they're all about. And Lord of Rings is dope. Like, what? It's almost like Game of Thrones 2003 light version, honestly. Like, it's tons of bad CGI, which is really hilarious to look back and kind of like laugh at now. But it's honestly it's really good. I'm like, man, this is a series I have to get into. Like, no one told me Lord of the Rings was this tough. It was always kind of like those kids who like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter back when I was younger, and I was always on the Harry Potter side of things, which I still am, despite seeing the battles in Lord of the Rings. But I got to go back and check that series out. Apparently, it's actually pretty interesting. So that was one little neat discovery this week in the entertainment kind of realm. Um, let's see. Oh, also, Also, oh my gosh, almost like choked there for a second. New season of anime is here, which for me is just like like an amazing. That wasn't a sound effect either. That was my actual voice, but it's just like an amazing feeling when a new season of anime is here. It's actually some leftovers from last season as well, but just a ton of interesting new shows to talk about and discuss. And granted, I don't really talk about it on this podcast, but friends and whatever that will be like, oh my god, did you see that? um, but just to kind of run off a few of them that I would recommend if you're interested in anime or trying to get into it, this new season kind of has a few, I would say 2 to 3 really strong ones so far. Copcraft, which is actually a series I've never heard of before. I think it's really, really well done in terms of kind of like a mystery detective-y type of series. Um, Quick rundown. Earth is kind of how it normally is, but except this is, say, maybe a couple thousand years in the future. The space-time gate has opened up and welcomed in a lot of other beings and races from other parts of the galaxy or whatever into the world, and now we're trying to kind of coexist. And we'll follow a detective as well as a female knight from one of these other races as they try to solve a case of a missing special magical being type thing. And it's kind of vague. And tracking down who stole this very precious person or kidnapped this very precious person, I should say, they're not an item, and just kind of solve that case. And it goes a lot deeper than that, of course, but just after 2 episodes so far, I'm actually really liking the concept. I'm liking the style. The action is pretty good. Story is interesting, and it's a pretty good one so far. It's kind of like a dark horse. It wasn't really touted to be this good, but it's turning out to be pretty solid. Second and third, two animes that were super hyped up: Vinland Saga and Doctor Stone. Vinland Saga, the story of a young boy, Thorfinn, kind of learning to become a Viking, what it means to be a fighter, and kind of grappling with that stuff. And Doctor Stone, where everyone has been turned to stone in the world, and two high school students are trying to rebuild civilization. Two really cool concepts, two really good anime, very hyped up anime, like I said, and of course episodes 1 through 3 for Vinland Saga didn't disappoint, and episodes 1 and 2 for Doctor Stone didn't disappoint as well. So I definitely recommend checking those out. Those are really good so far, especially Vinland Saga. The animation, the music, it's on point. It's on point. So yeah, that's just a quick little note on anime if you kind of were wondering what's going on there. And social media, I guess we're kind of roll this into the entertainment stuff as well. What's going on in the social media streets? Like I said at the top of the hour, I've been getting inspired by and kind of uplifted by creatives interacting with one another on Twitter and just in general. When I just feel it gives me like a warm and fuzzy feeling inside to know that other creatives are just encouraging one another, and that we want each other to do well. And this whole creative thing is not something where it's, you know, I guess I should say mutually exclusive, where two people can't be doing well for themselves at the same time. We all could do well, and we all should be able to have the opportunity. We don't necessarily have to be at each other's throats or just look at someone as competition. Look at it as someone who's trying to be like you, trying to just enjoy their little creative expression or outlet that they have going, and they're going through probably a lot of the same struggles you are. So why not talk and help each other? I just love that. And it just makes me want to be a bigger member in the community. I just wish that I could kind of bring people together and aggregate them in kind of like this MugenCast or Mugen community, and they can just feel as though, yeah, like this is something cool. The vibrations, the vibes in here are good, and these are just a bunch of good people, and that's ultimately the goal of everything that I'm doing. But down the line. And also there's also so many interesting and just dynamic forms of creation that I haven't thought about. Like I said, creative writing, artists, people who draw, people who paint. It's just like, because I'm kind of in my own creative bubble, I guess you should say, with my like photography, videography, whatever, podcasting as well. I just don't really look outside that and think like, wow, people are, really pushing boundaries and envelopes in other fields as well that I have no talent in whatsoever, like art. Like I can't paint for my life. I think I'm decent in my creative field, but you step outside that and you're like awful. But meanwhile, people are day in, day out trying to perfect their brushstrokes or mixing colors or doing dimensional photos and all that different types of stuff. It's just so kind of cool to see. So social media, especially Twitter, has just been really awesome. Social media is sometimes very depressing. So I'm glad to see that it's been going, or at least for me, it's been kind of a cool week. And also on a somewhat lighter note, that whole Area 51 thing that was going on this week was hilarious. To see like all the memes come out of like how I'm gonna show my parents my new alien like cousin when I pull them out of Area 51, and just all that whole stuff that was going on about people saying they were gonna storm it. It was funny. The memes were hilarious, and that was just a cool like social media moment. And of course, I don't think they ended up doing it anyway. So yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time in the entertainment social media world. And to end off, I'm just going to do a very quick minute or two kind of rundown of what you can be expecting soon. So that project I was talking about is going to be hopefully taking off as soon as possible, really. I just need to, I don't know, I feel like I just need to get everyone in one room who could just talk this whole thing out and get on the same page, because doing it kind of reaching out to people one is just annoying. So that's going to be coming together. Hopefully, a new project I also have working on, kind of a new series I'm going to be doing. Actually, it's gonna be a shorter one. It's not going to be super lengthy in terms of time that it'll take to do, and also the content itself. But I think it will be helpful to people, which is obviously what I want to gear my content towards nowadays. I think you'll enjoy it, and like the podcast, it's relatable, but I think it'll be more digestible, and it'll also give you, the viewer, listener, fan, a chance to interact with me and get your voice heard somewhat, which I think is a good thing. I think all creators that have communities with people are responsible to try and do that. So this is my attempt. What else? Shoots with Jeffrey is going to be coming up, aka at the Banditory Tour. At the Bandit Territory. I completely botched that. At the Bandit Territory on Instagram, my buddy Jeffrey. Hopefully, him and me are going to be linking up to get some photo shoots in. I think he needs some outfit photos, which is also always good because I need more content. And I just kind of want to see him take off as well with his thing. I think his concept is very interesting as well. So that's going to be interesting and fun. And yeah, I think that's about it. I can think of, no, I can't think of anything else. So that's been MugenCast episode 22. I think I'm going to call this one Out of Sight, Out of Mind. I hope you enjoyed the creative section, the little blip on entertainment. Hope you enjoyed hearing what's coming up next. As always, feel free to support me if you can on any of my platforms. Obviously here on MugenCast, now on iTunes and Spotify. Hopefully go into Podbean, Stitcher, and all those other platforms as well. But at Twitter, at Twitter, on Twitter, at Tales of Mugen, on Instagram, at Mugen.ig. Feel free to follow me. Talk to me about what we discussed in this episode. That would be really cool. Go in the iTunes comments and sound off with your opinions. I would like that as well. But thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed.